In this video, we're going to be revisiting the iPhone 12 in 2024. We're going to be covering the design, the camera, the performance, the battery life, the display and software support to see how well this phone's held up almost 4 years after its initial release. So the iPhone 12 was very much the average Joe phone. It was right in the middle of the lineup. It was smaller than the 12 Pro Max, but larger than the 12 Mini. And now in 2024, I've seen these phones going for as low as £200 on the used market. So hopefully this video will be useful if you were considering picking up an iPhone 12. So we're going to start this video off by revisiting the design of this phone. So I would describe the design of this phone as the newest looking old iPhone. And what I mean by this is the design of the iPhone hasn't really changed very much between the iPhone 12 and the iPhone 15, with only a few small design differences such as the addition of a dynamic island and the placement of the rear cameras. With the iPhone 12, Apple introduced flat edges to their phones, and they've kept this design with the iPhone 13, 14 and 15. So in the hand, this iPhone 12 will feel very similar to the latest iPhone 15. And with my time testing this phone, I was very impressed with the overall design and build quality. It felt like a very premium phone. So overall, I don't think you'll be disappointed with the design and build quality of this phone. So hopefully you're enjoying this video so far. If you are, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We've just hit 3,000 subscribers, which is absolutely amazing. Turn on the bell notification so you never miss an upload. Let's get on with the video. So we're next going to talk about the cameras. So the iPhone 12, the same as the iPhone 15, comes with a main shooter and an ultra wide, and these are both 12 megapixel sensors, and overall I was very impressed with both these cameras. I think the main shooter can take some really nice photos, and I was also very impressed with the ultra wide camera as well. I think that can also take some very nice shots, and I'll put some example photos on screen, but overall these are very nice shots. And I think the best way to describe these shots is they look very iPhone, and iPhone photos are generally very visually pleasing because it's usually what we see on social media, so our brains have become used to the colours and contrast of iPhone cameras. So Apple have been making some small incremental improvements in their cameras with every generation. So comparing the iPhone 15 to the iPhone 12, the iPhone 15 probably will produce some nicer looking images. After all, the iPhone 15's image sensors are larger, so the iPhone 15 should be able to produce some better low light images as well as better depth of field. But overall I was impressed with the camera experience of the iPhone 12. I was also impressed with the front facing camera. As someone that uses a Google Pixel, the front facing camera on the iPhone 12 was actually significantly better in my opinion. That is a thumbs up from me. I do think the iPhone 12 does have a good camera and shooting experience. So we're next going to talk about the performance of the iPhone 12. So the iPhone 12 comes paired with Apple's A14 Bionic chip, which is a 6-core processor with 2 powerful cores and 4 efficiency cores. It also comes with a 4-core GPU and 4GB of RAM. So the question is, how does this phone perform in 2024? And I am happy to report that this phone does perform very well in 2024. And with my testing, I was able to do lighter tasks such as browsing the internet very smoothly. And even with the 4GB of RAM, multitasking was still very good. This phone also impressed me with its gaming performance. So I jumped into a game of Call of Duty Mobile and I was surprised to find that this phone ran that game absolutely perfectly. Loading times were good and there were very few frame drops, and I'm also glad to report that the phone didn't even overheat. So if you're buying this phone hoping to play some games on it, then you won't be disappointed. The only gaming feature that's lacking is a high refresh rate screen, but we'll get onto the screen in a second. And so if you're still not convinced if the A14 Bionic chip is good enough for you, then I want to bring to your attention how good Apple's processors have been for the last few years. So the A14 Bionic chip was Apple's flagship mobile chip from 2020, which was almost 4 years ago. And here we have my daily device, the Google Pixel 7 Pro. This is a flagship phone that was released at the end of 2022. So this device is a whole 2 years newer than the iPhone 12. And as someone that's dailying this phone, I can report that this is a fast phone. But if we look at the benchmarks comparing the Google Pixel 7 Pro, which has a Tensor G2 chip, to the iPhone 12, which has an A14 Bionic chip. The A14 Bionic chip is almost 30% faster in nearly every single benchmark. So that just goes to show that the A14 Bionic chip is still a very relevant chip in 2024. So we're now going to talk about the battery life of the iPhone 12. So the iPhone 12 has a 2815 milliamp hour battery, which by today's standards does sound quite small. And it is also worth remembering that the A14 Bionic chip was a 5nm chip. So this processor was significantly more power efficient than the previous chips. So when this phone was first released, it did have fairly decent battery life, around 6 to 7 hours of screen on time. And it is worth remembering that this phone is almost 4 years old. So if you pick up this phone used, it will most likely not have a completely perfect battery, and because the used phone won't have perfect battery health, you most likely won't be getting 6 to 7 hours of screen on time. So overall, I'll give the battery life of this phone a 7 out of 10. This is probably one of the areas where this phone will show its age. So be careful if you're buying a used phone, make sure the battery health is fairly decent. So we're next going to talk about the display of the iPhone 12. So the iPhone 12 has a 6.1 inch OLED Quad HD 60Hz panel. And this is one of the areas of the phone that was greatly upgraded over the iPhone 11. If you can remember, the iPhone 11 had a 720p LCD display, so this was a massive upgrade. My time testing this phone, I was impressed with the display on this phone. I think it's got good colours. The only downside, which would be a deal breaker for me, is the 60Hz display. As someone that's become used to using 120Hz, going back to 60Hz is actually quite difficult. A 60Hz panel just makes the whole user experience feel fairly choppy. So it would have been nice to have a ProMotion 120Hz display, but I know Apple are saving that display for the Pro version of their iPhones. Fun fact, even the iPhone 15 still has a 60Hz display. So finally, we're going to talk about the software support of the iPhone 12. So software support seems to be something that Apple does really well. The iPhone 12, which is a phone that's almost 4 years old, Apple says will receive software updates until 2027. So the iPhone 12 still has another 3 years of software support, which is really nice to see. So if you pick this phone up in 2024, then I wouldn't be worried about missing out on the latest iOS. And deciding whether or not you like iOS or Android is personal preference. And if you're looking into buying an iPhone 12, then I can assume you're more into the Apple iOS ecosystem. So the iPhone and the Apple ecosystem is obviously really good if you use other Apple products. So if you're someone that uses AirPods or the Apple Watch or a MacBook, then an iPhone 12 will work perfectly with all these devices. So the iPhone 12 still is definitely a relevant, up-to-date device in 2024. And if you find a decent example of this device on the used market, then it probably is one of the best value iPhones out there today. It's still got modern and up-to-date design. It's still got a fairly decent camera system, decent performance, fairly decent battery life, and it's going to be receiving software updates for the next 3 years. And finally, it's worth mentioning that this was the first iPhone to have MagSafe. So if you've got any magnetic MagSafe accessories, then that will work with this iPhone 12. So anyways, hopefully you've enjoyed this video on the iPhone 12. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on the iPhone 12 in 2024, so leave your opinion in the comment section below. And if you have enjoyed, consider subscribing. I upload weekly tech videos. And please drop us a like. We're going to try and aim for 30 likes on this video. I'll see everyone in my next video.